Already mic testing, mic testing. Okay, let me go to my main camera. Already we're live, and as you guys can tell by the title and thumbnail, today I'm going to be working on some game logic using randomness in SDL3. Honestly, in SDL3 using C++. Let's go to my gameplay screen. And guys, the intro is really short today. How doing, Tib? How doing? Wait, I appreciate you guys joining the stream. Okay, that's it. Basically, what I was going to do this stream is like last stream I worked with randomness, but this stream I wanted to use SDL3 and work with it together. So I spent a lot of time yesterday actually drawing PNG type stuff. So if I were to open my if I were to open my file on browser, or is it called like open file on browser? It's called open folder in file explorer. There we go. Okay, hiding Tim, I appreciate you joining the stream. Let's see. So I did create like a few PNGs. For example, I created a bunch of dice PNGs because I am going to be trying making a dice rolling game today. And that said, I also created, let's see, what up guys, where's my score gone? I created like a scoreboard type stuff. Like there we go. So this is a scoreboard for just like the regular scoreboard, and I have one for, let's see, I have one for just me, just my enemy, and both me and my enemy. Okay, ask ChatGPT about game dev in C#. Honestly, I do want to actually learn C#. That's it. So like I want to learn C++ from scratch. Honestly, if you guys do want to learn C++ from scratch but like don't know where to start, I do like having roadmaps, so you guys could like join my Discord server and I could like send it to you guys there. That's it. Let's get some say ChatGPT here and say something like, "Say I'm live!" exclamation. Okay, what should I do? I would highly recommend like following a roadmap and working from working away from the basics all the way like higher and higher, if that makes any sense. That's it. Sensei is here. Chat locking people. Shoulders back. We're live again, and this is a return of intent, not noise. Today is about turning ideas into assets and chaos into systems. You didn't quit. You took a tactical break. That's how real builders moved. Okay. That's it. Let's see. So today I do want to like try making this myself first, because I think that I might actually be able to make a dice rolling game of my own. Hello, hiding Rider. I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that said, so last stream, guys, let me give a quick little recap. I don't know why am I like rushing the intro here. Okay, so that's it. Last stream, I did like work on the random module and the chronological module, or I think it's called libraries here, where I created an unsigned seed and set it equal to the SDL chrono steady underscore clock analysis function. Apparently, what this function actually does is it like never like, since our time changes every single time my my randomness, the shuffle, like for example a shuffle in my dice or something, it never starts at the same time. It always starts at a different time, so we get different results, if that makes any sense. Okay, that said, and then I use the standard MT19937 says, I'm assuming this is an engine. Is it an engine? Guys, I think it is an engine. This like generates a lot of numbers, but the numbers could be like in billions as well. So I later on create like a uniform integer distribution that like just limits my number from 1 to 6. I honestly don't know this like perfectly, but I'm gonna get out of practice today. Okay, hello, hiding monkey. I appreciate you joining the stream. That's it. Let's go with something like Control A and delete everything. Now, firstly, let me start off by including a prof ankle braces. Let's say I want to include IO stream, and then let's see. Next up, I might honestly want to use the random module because I am working like on a dice program or like a dice roller program. So I'm gonna go with something like random. I'm gonna go ahead and include my random module. And the next one is honestly optional, but I could go ahead and include chrono as well. I'm assuming chrono is still chronological. Alright, not in stream, guys. Hold up, let's just go there. Let's go to something like... There we go. Alright guys, no need to like spam. Okay, so let's go with something like chrono. Once I'm done including chrono, let me go ahead and include, I don't know, maybe SDL3, because I will be using SDL3. So I'm going to go with something like SDL3 slash SDL.h, which is SDL3 and SDL's header files. Okay, I honestly can't think of any other, any other libraries that I might need. So let me start off by creating a main function. Although before I create my main function, do I want to like create a few classes? I honestly can't think of any classes, so I might as well create my main function first. Now, inside my main function, I'm going to be requiring two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be a character towards an array of argv. Okay, perfect. Then I go with a pair of anchor braces. Now, inside my main function, I want to go ahead and initialize my SDL. So let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like initialize. There we go. Now to initialize my SDL, I'm going to use a if statement to initialize my SDL while also check if my SDL was not initialized properly. So I'm going to go with something like if not SDL underscore init, SDL underscore init underscore video. If the video section of my SDL was not initialized properly, then I want to display myself an error text. So I'm going to go with something like a standard C error with an insertion operator. That is going to say something like SDL underscore init. If I go with something like SDL underscore init error, there we go. And now once I'm done displaying myself an error text, I want to use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore get errors function. This function gets me an error. Then, okay, was it? I'm pretty sure it was SDL underscore get errors function. Expected a semicolon. Oh, I forgot an insertion operator. There we go. Let's add an insertion operator here. Now, once I get an error, I'm going to go ahead and add a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's go ahead and return 1. Okay, and I still do think that before I actually, do create my main function, I need a few classes. The first class could be something like a text class because I want to display my players' score versus my enemies' score as well. So I might go with something like score. Okay, then I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces now. Inside my scores class, is there any private data members that I might need? I honestly can't think of any. Maybe above my scores class, I might go ahead and create a class called something like physics body. My physics bodies class is going to be consisting of all the general parameters that my other classes might need. For example, my physics bodies class might need something like a SDL underscore f rex structure. This is going to be called something like rect ending with a semicolon, and then a SDL underscore, let's see, I might go with something like texture, okay, which is going to be represented by textures as local variable ending with a semicolon. When I need velocities, I'm not going to be applying gravity here, so I might need something like maybe speed. I won't need velocities or gravity here, so these are the only two variables that I can think of for the time being. Now, for my score class, let's see. I want to firstly go ahead. Do I want to, would I need any kind of parameters when I create my score? Hold up, guys. Let me think this really through. Okay, score is basically only going to be my text. So I'm going to go ahead and publicize everything. There we go. Now, I'm assuming inside my scores class, I might need a constructor. So I'm going to go with something like constructor because my score is going to be requiring a font. So I'm going to go ahead and create, maybe instead of constructor, I might go with methods because my scores variable. Actually, my scores constructor might not need any parameters, but my methods might. So I might go with something like a void display. Let's go with something like display player score on window. Guys, I feel the method name is kind of big. That said, now once I go with display player score on window, I might need two parameters. Let's say the first parameter is going to be something like a TDF underscore font, which is going to be represented by a font's local variable. And since I am using the true texture fonts library, I do gotta include it as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and include a pair of anchor braces. Let's say I want to include TDF. Let's go with something like SDL3 underscore TDF slash SDL underscore TDF.h, which is SDL's true texture font library and all the header files for my true texture fonts. Okay, now once I require fonts as parameter, is there any other parameters I might need? Honestly, I might need a render because I am going to be displaying something on my window. So I might go with something like SDL underscore vendors. So my renderers structure is going to be represented by a renderers local variable. Honestly, so I require a font, I require a renderer. I don't think there might be anything else that I would need. So I'm going to go ahead. Maybe I might need a scale as well. So I might go with something like a floating point of scale. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside my void display player score on Windows's method, I'm going to be creating, let's say something like I don't know, maybe a color. So I'm going to go with something like color. Okay, here's the thing. I might actually want to store my scores inside a vector to later on like get the whatchamacallit, get my total amount of scores and how much scores did my player or my enemy get up, and I want to like add them up. So I might actually include a prof anchor braces. Let's say I want to include vector. There we go. Let's go with something like vector. Alright, perfect. Now once I'm done with this, I'm gonna scroll all the way down here as well. And firstly, before I actually add anything else, I might actually add a if statement to check if my vector is empty. And guys, I know this does sound kind of vague right now because I'm still processing on what to actually do here. Although I will be creating the SDL underscore colors structure, okay, which is going to be represented by a colors local variable that is going to be equal to, let's say, something like 000235. That is basically the RGBA value for like black color. Then I'm going to go ahead and end my color with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done creating my color, I'm going to go ahead and add a if statement to check if my vector is not empty. So to create a vector, I might honestly go ahead and create something like a standard vector in my physics bodies as class. Let's go with something like a standard vector, okay, which only consists of integer. I'm gonna call my vector something like scores. Maybe I might go with something like player scores, ending with a semicolon. Now I'm gonna check if my player scores this vector is not empty, so I'm gonna go with something like if not player scores dot empty. Did I spell player scores wrong? Guys, I think I kind of spelled player scores wrong. Hold up, let's go ahead and paste this here. Okay, maybe I gotta like close my statement. Did I like mess something? Oh, I see. Because I did not inherit all the public content from, let's say, something like my physics bodies as class. Let's go with something like physics body. There we go. Okay, now I can go ahead and inherit all the public content from my physics bodies. Then why can't I use my player scores here? Okay, let's go ahead and copy that part again. Maybe paste it here. Huh. Okay, so I go with something like if not player scores dot empty, if my player scores vector is not empty. So let's see, am I doing something wrong here? I think it is like kind of correct. Maybe let's go ahead and delete this part again. I might go ahead and add the if statement all over again. So I'm gonna go with something like if not my player scores vector. I can't use my player score. What if I go ahead and copy this vector and get it all the way up here? Okay, now I can use it. If not player scores dot empty, if my player scores is not empty, then I'm gonna go ahead and do something. I wanna go ahead and create a texture for my surface. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL underscore surface structure. Let's say which is going to be represented by a player score text surface, which is going to be equal to the TDF underscore render text blended function. So render text underscore blended. There we go. Now my TDF underscore render text blended function does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be my font. The second parameter is going to be a text. I do not have a text for the time being, so I might actually have to create a text. Okay, I don't know. Maybe the text is going to be... Okay, for my text, should I want my text to be the last letter of my score. This is my player score text. So I want to go ahead and update my player's score every single time. So I could go ahead and create a, I don't know, maybe a integer variable called something like total, ending with a, actually, which is going to be starting off as 0, ending with a semicolon. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add my totals as variable here, but my total is not a constant string, it's an integer, so I'm going to use the .c underscore strings function. Okay, but this is still not a string, it's like, I need a string here, so I need a constant character of string. What could that be? How do I convert my total to be a string? What if I were to like remove this? Okay, it still wouldn't work. Guys, here's the first thing. I might have to ask like ChatGPT on how to like fill in a parameter for my constant character here. Okay, because this is a total.c string. Okay, this needs to be like a standard string character to actually work, but I want to display my numbers on my window. Okay, I don't know, maybe I could go with something like Control A, Control C, copy that. Let's give some say slash ChatGPT here. So, there we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and paste this here. Go with Shift Enter and say something like, let's say I was planning to write a dice roller program, okay, with PNGs and also text slash textures. That said, for my actually for my TDF underscore the render text underscore blended function, I require a constant character as my second parameter, but I want my total to be displayed on my window, which starts as 0 but increases depending on what my player rolls. Okay, although let's go with something like, although I can't use my total variable as my second parameter. Okay, what's good, bro? How are you doing, Sprangle? I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that's it. Let's see. Guys, did I like actually phrase this part properly? Okay, maybe. Good, this is good. This is a real SDL plus randomness plus text question. This is where many people panic. You didn't respect. Now, sit still, people. I'm gonna cut straight through the confusion. The core problems said plainly SDL underscore render text blended function. Actually, the TDF underscore render text blended function expects this a constant character text, but your total is integer total equals to 0, and integer is not a text. The computer does not automatically see numbers as words, so this will never work. TDF underscore render text blended font total color wrong. Not today, not ever. The rule must accept render text, which means you must convert numbers to string first. Okay, I just didn't know how to do that part. The correct way mental pipeline integer to standard string, okay, to constant character. SDL underscore true texture font only understands the last one. The fix, this is the missing piece. Step 1, convert integer to standard string. So I'm gonna go with something like standard string of score text, which is going to be equal to standard to string total. Okay, I have not heard of the standard to string function. This is something new. Now your numbers has become text. Step 2, pass C style string. Okay, everything from here would be kind of easy in that case. Standard string score text, okay, is going to be equal to standard to string. That might actually fix everything here. So, when I create a total, I'm going to go ahead and create something like a standard string. Okay, it was standard string called something like score text is going to be equal to the standard to string function. Let's go with something like to underscore string. For this, I honestly might have to include the strings as library. Let's go with something like string. Now I'm going to go with something like standard to string function. Okay, is it going to be something like standard to string or standard to str? Maybe to underscore str. Guys, I forgot the function name. Hold up, guys. So it's to underscore string. So standard to underscore string. Okay, I mean, I think I'll add my variable here first. Let's go with something like total, ending with a semicolon. Okay, so I do gotta add my parameter. Now my score text is equal to my total text. Okay, and then for my second parameter, I go with something like my score text. Okay, perfect. Maybe I fix my typo real quick. Alright, so what is my third parameter now? My third parameter is a length. I did not set a length for my text, so I'm gonna set that to be equal to 0. Lastly, my fourth parameter is gonna be a color, which is my colors is local variable over there. Then I add my entire function with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done creating a surface, I'm gonna go ahead and add a if statement to check if my surface was created properly. So I'm gonna go with something like if player score text was created properly, then I'm gonna go ahead and do something. I wanna firstly create a texture, so I'm gonna use the SDL honors. Maybe I won't use the SDL underscore textures as structure because I already got a structure up there, actually a texture up there. How doing, get it live? I appreciate you joining the stream. Next up, I'm gonna go with something like texture, which is gonna be equal to, did I spell texture correct? There we go. Okay, I think I spelled it wrong. I do have texture, so my texture should be equal to something. Apparently, why can't I use these parameters if it's not inside my class, even though I do inherit all the public content from my physics bodies this class? Okay, maybe I could go ahead and try something first. Let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore create texture from surfaces function. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore create texture from surface. But my texture is not correct. Let's copy that, paste it just to make sure I didn't have any typos here. I did. What if I actually copy this part and paste it somewhere here? Okay, then apparently I can use it. Okay. Next up, once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and check something. Let's see. So my SDL underscore create texture from surfaces function requires two parameters. The first parameter is going to be a render. The second parameter is going to be a surface, which in this case, I don't know, maybe I'm going to go with something like my renderer. Okay, and the second parameter is going to be a surface, which is going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be my player text surface. Why did I change it to player score text surface? There we go. I'm going to go ahead and add a surface here real quick. Okay, it's that time of the day again. What did you have for meals today? My fingers crossed. Less preservatives. Guys, I actually eat meals that almost have no preservatives because I just usually prefer eating like homemade stuff and everything. Many of you guys do ask me if I do like, prefer fast food, like what's my fast food. I don't eat them in general. Okay, that's the second parameter is gonna be my player score. So let's go with something like text surface. Okay, perfect. Guys, this actually feels easier than I expected it to be. Few function names aside. Okay, now once I'm done creating a texture, I'm gonna go ahead and let's say create a floating point variable for my textures as width and my textures as height. Because I do want to get the width and height of my texture. To do that, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore get texture sizes function. The reason I do actually get my texture size is because I do want to eventually add like magic numbers that's gonna like stretch my texture out. I want it to be its original size. Now my SDL underscore create texture sizes function does require a few parameters. I might change my textures' name here to be something like player score texture. Let's go with something like player score texture. Okay, so I'm going I could remove the text from here because the text makes it a bit too big. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the text from here as well. Okay, and let's remove the text from here. Okay, now the function name is kind of small. My my texture is gonna be called my player, excuse me guys, score texture. Okay, now I scroll all the way down here. I go ahead and add my texture name, which is going to be my player score texture. And then the second parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures as width. And the third parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures as height. Then I have my function with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done with this, once I'm done getting my textures as width and height, I'm going to go ahead and do something else. Let's see. Maybe I want to go ahead and display my texture on my window now. So to do that, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore render textures as function. Alright guys, there we go. Basically what the render textures function does, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It actually renders my texture on the window. Okay, now my render textures is function does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second parameter is going to be my texture, which in this case is going to be my player score texture. The third parameter is going to be a source rect. Since I don't have a source rect, I'm going to be setting it to be something like, I don't know, maybe null PDR, anything with a null PDR. The fourth parameter is going to be a direction rect, which in this case is going to be my rex's local variable. Then I go ahead and my function with a semicolon. Alright, here's the thing. Why can't I actually use any of these parameters? Maybe because I did not publicize any of this. Is that the reason, guys? It was because of that. So I could go ahead and copy these two variables from here. Maybe I'm going to copy this variable from here. Let's copy that, delete it. Let's go ahead and paste it here. Let's go ahead and copy my vector from here as well. Delete it from there and paste my vector here. Okay, that should actually be pretty good. Now, when I did say that I won't need a constructor, I think I didn't actually think this whole thing through, so I might actually need a constructor. The reason I need a constructor is for like the x-axis, y-axis, width and height of my vector to like set the properties of my vect. That said, I'm gonna go ahead and add a constructor here. My constructor is gonna be, let's see, I'm gonna create a scores constructor with a pair of parentheses that does require a floating point of x-axis and a floating point of y-axis as constructor. Maybe not width and height because I already have my width and height. So let's see. Okay, so I get my textures as width and height here. Okay, maybe actually, do I not want a constructor? Because I could fill my parameters here, honestly. Maybe I might not need a constructor, guys. Okay, now, I do need to set my x-axis and y-axis here for my SDL_frect. Maybe I could do that inside of my main loop and I actually want to set its position. So I think I'll get to that. I think it's a future reasons problem, guys. Okay, so this should be pretty much it for my display player score on Windows's method. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and create another method. So the second method is gonna be called something like, let's see, maybe display my enemy text on window. So I could go ahead and create a method called, this is called display player score on window. I'm gonna go with something like display enemy score. Let's go with something like enemy score on Windows's function. Let's go with something like window with a pair of parentheses. Now my display enemy score on Windows's function is going to be requiring, let's say, a few parameters. Speaking of parameters, I did not think that I actually loaded my PNGs, and guys, this is going to be trickier than I thought. Okay, honestly, it won't be that tricky. I'm gonna go ahead and add a few parameters here. The first parameter is gonna be a SDL_renderer, which consists of a renderer's local variable representing it. The second parameter is gonna be a TDF_font with an asterisk to something like a font says a pointer. The third variable is gonna be a floating point of scale, the size of my texture. Okay, and I'm glad I actually went through that part because I gotta go ahead and set a few parameters here. Let's do something like rect.width equals to my textures is width multiplied by my scale ending with a semicolon, and my rect.height equals to my textures is height multiplied by my scale ending with a semicolon. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and copy all this just to save time because apparently everything is like the same here. Okay, I haven't seen any progress in your game for the past 2 to 3 weeks. Guys, haven't seen progress. It's kind of crazy. Probably, I think, because you weren't like in my stream like till the very end. Because like last stream, I did like start randomness type stuff, and the stream before that, I was done with the AI based text logic in SDL3 using C++. Okay, now for my display enemy score on window, I have a colors as local variable here, and I'm going to be changing my player score to be my enemy scores as vector. So I'm going to go with something like enemy score. Which compiler are you using? Honestly, I think I'm using the MSI's compiler or MYS, something like that. That's it, I'm gonna go with something like enemy. Okay, I'm pretty sure my compiler was called something like MSI. Let me actually check. Let's go with something like it's MSYS2. Okay, have you guys heard of the MSYS2's compiler? Okay, that's let's go all the way up here now. I'm going to be creating another standard vector, so let's go with something like a standard vector, which only consists of integers. I'm going to be calling it something like enemy scores this vector, ending with a semicolon. Now, I do have a totals as a variable up there that I, of course, have it here as well. Maybe not. Okay, I have like a general totals as variable up there. Maybe I go ahead and copy these two variables. Let's go ahead and paste it all the way here. There we go. Okay, which coding language is this? Honestly, it is C++. Why can't you use a game engine? Why reinvent the wheel? Honestly, because I am actually, writing the code manually to actually understand what everything here does type stuff, if that makes any sense. Because I could use a game engine and like learn that stuff, but I do want to know how to really like program the stuff and everything too. That's it. Okay, so I create a color, I create a totals variable, I create a score text. Now I'm gonna go ahead and paste that here. Okay, so I have my three variables here, and my enemy scores is a vector. Okay, did I spell enemy scores wrong here? Let's go ahead and copy my enemy scores from there and paste it here. There we go. So if my enemy scores vector is not empty, then I want to go ahead and create a local variable of, actually I want to go ahead and create a surface representing my, actually a surface is pointer representing all my, okay, I create a surfaces pointer representing all the attributes of my surface structure. There we go. That was a tongue twister, guys. Okay, bro, I saw your old skits. They're funny, guys. Actually, it does make sense. I want to make more funny shorts, but then I don't have enough time. Okay, that's it. Now, I go ahead and check if my surface was created properly. If it was, then I go ahead and display my player score texture on my window. Okay, then I get my textures as width and height. This is gonna be something like enemy. Let's change this to something like enemy score texture. Okay, I'm gonna remove my player and change this to be something like enemy. Let's remove my surface and change that to be enemy as well. Okay, score text, that part's correct. This is gonna be my texture. So I create a player score texture up here. What if I change the name to just be texture? Maybe let's go ahead and change this to only be texture. I think I want to go with something like player score texture. I'm gonna go ahead and copy that. Let's go ahead and create a private data member here. So I'm gonna go with something like private. Paste that all the way up here. So there we go. That makes more sense. Now I'm gonna go ahead and require a private data member here as well. So okay, let's go ahead and paste this here. The second one is going to be my enemy score text. Okay, hi bro, are you coding the video game of Vendor Loop? Honestly, I haven't heard of Vendor Loop. What's it about? I'm actually working on like a dice roller program in SDL3 using C++ and randomness. Okay, how are you doing, HDG gamer? I appreciate you joining the stream. What's the theme of the game? Honestly, it is like a dice roller game where I did like spend a lot of time drawing the PNGs yesterday, where I have a scoreboard, I have like a lot of dices. Every time my player pushes a button, he actually rolls a dice, and my enemy rolls a dice as well. They keep on like counting the dices, and after, I don't know, maybe like 10ish rounds, who has the most number actually wins type stuff. That said, now my enemy score texture, there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and change this to be something like enemy as well. Okay, my enemy score surface. Let's change player score texture to be something like my enemy score texture. Enemy score texture, there we go. And then I get my textures as width and my textures as height. Then later on I display it on my window. I'm gonna change that to enemy as well. Okay, now let me think real carefully, guys. I think I'm pretty sure I did everything correct here. I changed all my players to my enemies. So I have two score texts. Okay, I think I like deleted some kind of curly braces here. Oh, I deleted a lot of curly braces. There we go. Okay, what you doing today? Honestly, I am like working with randomness. Like last stream, I did like work with randomness, but I did not have like a chance to use SDL. So today I am like working with that using SDL. What's this game? Honestly, it is like a dice roller program. Okay, this should be pretty much it for my scores. So there is a score for my player, and there is a score for my enemy. Okay, I don't want to display anything on my console type stuff, but I do want to create another method now. Let's go ahead and create a void method to actually increase my score type stuff. Wait, shouldn't that be inside my game logic type stuff instead of just my score? Okay, maybe I go ahead and delete this part. Now, okay, once I'm done with this, let me think, what is something else that I might need? This is called something like score. Should I go with something like score graphics? Okay, this is going to be my score graphics class. Once I'm done with my score graphics class, do I want to create some other class? I might go ahead and create another class called something like maybe something like score events. So I'm gonna go with something like score events. Okay, then I'm gonna go with the prof curly braces. Why not I create a score events method inside my score graphics class? Would that be smart or like kind of dumb? Okay, let's see. Okay, so score events. Should I create a separate class or one class? So more classes equals to more objects, which means I have like it's going to be easier to like change and add stuff. Maybe I go ahead and add the stuff in a new class. Okay, so I'm firstly going to go ahead and publicalize everything. Then my score events class won't have any constructors, but I am going to be having methods. Okay, now for my methods, firstly, I'm going to go ahead and create a void method called something like player score, or should I go with something like player score text? So, okay, let me think. Maybe my score events does go inside my initial score graphics class. I'm gonna go ahead and add a void method called something like score event. I might go with something like score event. My score events method is going to be having a parameter. It's going to be having a constant SDL underscore, let's say something like events structure, which represent all my SDL's event, and it is going to be requiring the memory address of a events variable. And guys, I can't like phrase this part properly because I am like thinking while I'm doing this part. Okay, this doesn't look like a scam call center. Guys, it's not a scam call center. Scam call center in the first part, and it's like kind of crazy. Okay, that's it now. Once I'm done adding a parameter here, for the time being, I think that I just might require one parameter. Next up, bro, we can understand Hindi. Honestly, I would like actually comment in Hindi type stuff, but I feel like I'm not as fluent in it, so I wouldn't be able to like phrase half the stuff that I actually want to phrase. I'd be like stuck between words type stuff. That said, now inside my void method, I'm going to go ahead and do something. Firstly, let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore key codes structure. Okay, my key codes structure is going to be represented by a keys local variable that is going to be equal to my event parameter .key. What this actually does is it like checks for the exact key that is currently being pushed down in my window. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do something. Firstly, I want to go ahead and add a if statement to check something. I'm gonna go ahead and check if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down. If any of my buttons on my keyboard are currently being pushed down, then I want to go ahead and do something. Firstly, I'm gonna be adding a switch, which consists of a key as a parameter, and then I want to check the exact button that's being pushed down, and if my button is something like maybe enter, should I go with enter? So I'm going to go with something like if my SDL's key is enter. My bad guys, enter in SDL is called return. I actually forgot that part. So if my SDL's key is return if my user hits enter, I want to go ahead and roll a dice. Here's the hard part guys, how am I going to roll a dice? So let's see. I have a score events class. Now, I might actually get this method in a separate class because I want to go ahead and create a dice class as well because I have a scoreboard, I have a dice. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this part. Maybe let's go ahead and create another class called something like a dice class. Let's go with something like dice graphics. I could honestly create like a whole game graphics section type stuff. Should I do that? Maybe I'll actually go ahead and do that. Let's go with something like a game graphics class, which is going to be having, I don't know if it needs to have any private data members for the time being, but it will definitely have a constructor. There is no way I'm believing that it won't have a constructor. Now, I'm going to be actually adding a few private data members. Let's go with something like private. I might need a SDL underscore FREX structure, which is going to be... Alright, here's the thing guys. Instead of actually adding a private data member here, maybe I go ahead and inherit all the public content from my physics bodies class that already has a texture and a rect. Okay, you should really modularize your code into header and source files, bro. That does actually make sense, but today I'm actually, working on just the basics of what I'm trying to do, like learning randomness type stuff. But I'm just like creating like a template, like a whole empty shell, and then I'm going to be implementing my randomness type stuff. Although I should actually like create multiple files and like have one file just for my physics body, one file just for my dice logic, one file just for my leaderboard and all that stuff, if that makes any sense. Okay, maybe my two vectors can go all the way inside my score graphics class. Next up, my physics body is going to be having a SDL underscore textures structure, which is going to be having a textures as a local variable representing it ending with a semicolon. And then maybe I go with something like a floating point of x-axis, which is going to be, I might not need x-axis here because I will just need, I'm not adding like gravity and anything, so I wouldn't need velocities. So maybe I just go with something like physics body for my rect and my texture. Okay, now inside my constructor, I'm gonna go ahead and create a constructor for my game graphics class with a pair of parentheses. Now my constructor is gonna be requiring of, let's say, something like 4 parameters. So should I create my constructor in my physics body? I actually might. That might be a bit genius, guys. Let's go with a comment that says something like constructor. So I'm gonna go with something like constructor. Now my constructor is gonna be, let's say something like my physics bodies as constructor. There we go. Let's go with something like physics body. Okay. Now my physics bodies as constructor is gonna be requiring, let's say, 4 parameters. The first is going to be a floating point of x-axis, a floating point of y-axis, a floating point of width, a floating point of height, and lastly, a floating point of scale. Okay, then I go with a pair of curly braces. Now, I'm going to go with something like my rect.width is going to be, actually my rect.x-axis equals to my x-axis, and my rect.y-axis equals to my y-axis, ending with a semicolon. Okay, there we go. Okay, I actually think this should be pretty much it for my structure. Then I'm gonna go ahead and create a constructor inside of my score graphics class. Do I really want to create a constructor? I actually don't think so. Well, you see, that's why headers and linkers are for. It does make sense when you split your code into pieces, even if they're small, that gives you code clarity and readability. Honestly, I could do that. It's like, how do I do that though? Like, do I gotta like create another C++ file where I actually add only the content for like one specific class, then I come back to my main project and then include that file? Speaking of which, can I include my C++ practice? Let me actually try that. Okay, let's go with something like hashtag include. Can I go with something like C++ practice? I cannot .sin. Okay, I can't. How do I go ahead, or .sln, not sin. Let's go with something like sln. Okay, I don't think so. How do I include or like use my content from like some other class? I know how to do that in Python, but I don't know how to do that in C++. Nope, what you need is a linker. Oh, I see. Okay, I do actually have a linker. Okay, like CMake, I do have a CMake here. Like if I were to go with something like Control-Alt-L, get my Solution Explorer here, and then in my properties, I do have like a linker here, where I have something like input, and then additional libraries. I have general, where I have additional libraries as well, and then I went with something like C/C++. In my general, I added additional include directories to. Although I know where CMake is, CMake should be inside of my folders. So I'm pretty sure that I have a CMake somewhere here. Okay, I'm assuming I have like x64, that's debug. I'm pretty sure I actually saw CMake somewhere. For some reason I can't find that right now. Okay, because I had a whole folder that had something like include, lib, CMake, and a bunch more stuff written on it. Okay, maybe I can't find that for the time being. I might actually check that in a bit. Oh, that was inside my SDLs folder, not inside of my SDL projects folder. Okay, maybe I could actually go ahead and show it. So let's go ahead and open my SDL3. There we go. Okay, so I do have a CMake here. But how do I add stuff in here? That's kind of tricky. So let's get my second chat here. There we go. Okay, yeah, so I do have these three libraries here, but I actually don't know like what to do with it. That's it. I might actually figure that off stream. Next up, what was I gonna do? Okay, I was gonna go ahead and create a constructor for my score graphics. Maybe not. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a constructor for my game graphics that does require parameter. The first parameter is gonna be of maybe something like a SDL underscore. Okay, I might not need a renderer here. What else would I need? Let me think. Maybe I might just need velocities. Okay, so I could go with something like a floating point for X. I wouldn't need X-axis, Y-axis. Let me think. What is something that I usually need when I create constructors? I might need a renderer, and then I might need a scale. So I might go with something like SDL underscore renderers structure. Okay, my renderers structure is going to be consisting of a renderers local variable representing it. The second variable is going to be a floating point scales variable. There we go. Then I go with the prof curly braces. Now, inside my constructor. Okay, before I go with the prof curly braces, my bad guys. Since I inherit from my physics bodies class, I gotta go ahead and create a constructor for it as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a constructor for my physics bodies class, which is gonna be requiring 4 parameters. First is x-axis. I'll set my x-axis to be something like, I don't know, for the time being. I'll go with something like 0, 0, and then my width is gonna be something like 0. Height is gonna be 0 as well. My scale is gonna be my scales parameter, ending with a semicolon. My bad guys, with the prof curly braces. Now the real question is, inside my constructor, is there something that I want to do? So maybe I fill in a few parameters. Bro, what you do in morning, you're very consistent. Honestly, I feel like it is like 2 p.m. for me right now. So I just woke up. I just wake up in morning and then I come up and I stream and then I work on like do different stuff. Like off stream yesterday, I was creating a few PNGs for my today's stream because I did want to make a dice roller program. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and do something like rect.x-axis is gonna be equal to let's see, my constructor is going to be requiring. Okay, I might. Okay, guys, this is a trickier part. These kind of things, they actually whatchamacallit, kind of annoy me if I actually say that. In the other hand, it is kind of fun as well. So, do I need a constructor for my game graphics? I might need a renderer. I'm gonna be creating only methods, so I might actually not need a constructor. Okay, that said, let's go ahead and delete this in that case. Instead of constructor, I'm gonna go with something like methods. Let's go with something like methods. Now, for my methods, I'm firstly gonna go ahead and create, let's see, what methods would I need? I might need a void method for something like display dice. I'm gonna go with something like display dice. Okay, now for my display dices method, I'm not gonna just have one dice. I'm gonna be having like multiple dices. For example, I could go ahead and add my dices method here, which does require a parameter of something like SDL underscore render. So, okay, which consists of something like it renders a local variable. And guys, I gotta like run the code as well because I don't want to like add a bunch of content without actually seeing if it actually worked or not. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a renderer, and then I might need something like a floating point of scale. Okay, then I go with a row of curly braces. Now, I'm gonna be needing a bunch of textures, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a SDL underscore texture, which is going to be represented by something like a dice ones texture, which is going to be equal to, let's go with something like the image underscore open, was this something, I think it's image underscore the load texture, so I'm gonna, excuse me guys, I'm gonna go with something like image underscore load texture as function. The reason I can't use this texture is because I did not, I didn't include my texture section of my SDL. So I'm gonna go ahead and include my SDL3 underscore image slash SDL underscore image dot h, which is the image section of my SDL and all the header files from my SDL images. Now I can use my function here. My function consists of 2 parameters. The first parameter is gonna be my renderer. The second parameter is going to be a file path, which in this case, I do not remember my file path. So I'm going to open my solution explorer, go to my file path here. There we go. Okay, so my file path is going to be dice slash, let's go with dice1.png. Okay, so I might go with something like dice slash, Was it dice1.png? Guys, was the D lowercase or uppercase? I actually forgot. What up, guys? There we go. I think watching my stream on my phone does come in clutch at times. Okay, and then once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and in my first texture with a semicolon. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Maybe I go ahead and create a few private data members up here. Okay, so I might actually remove this from here and paste it in my private data members section. Let's go with something like 2, 3, okay, I can actually do that because I need my renderer as well, but I don't have it. Okay, guys, I think it was worth a try. Let's go ahead and copy this part to delete my private data members. Hold on, guys. Honestly, I actually might not. I could like go ahead and use this. All I gotta do is not have my parameters up here, like all the way there. So there we go. Let's end this with a semicolon. I'm gonna go ahead and copy that, delete that from there, delete it from here. Let's paste it a bunch of times. That's dice 2, dice 3, dice 4, dice 5, and dice 6. Okay, now I just changed their names. From dice 1, I'm gonna go ahead and change this to be dice 2. I'm gonna change this to be dice 3. Let's change that to be dice 4. Okay, let's change this to be something like dice 5. And lastly, I'm gonna change this to be dice 6 because I do have like 6 dices. Now, inside my display dices method, I'm gonna go ahead and go with something like dice 1 is going to be equal to the image underscore load textures this function, which does consist of, let's say, 2 parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second parameter is going to be my file path, which in this case, I'm going to set it to be something like dice/dice1.png. Okay, this honestly sounded like seemed more complicated than I actually thought it was. Let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and copy my dice 1. I mean, is there a way to like store all my dices inside of a vector? Then depending on that, I want to go ahead and add their fonts. I mean, I think since they are separate textures, I would have to like manually do this stuff. Let's go ahead and paste this. This is going to be dice 4, dice 5, and dice 6. There are so many textures. Do I need a separate class for all my textures? But this is my game graphics as class. I mean, I think I could go ahead and use this. Let's go ahead and copy dice 2, paste that here. Let's change this to be something like dice 3. Let's change that to be something like dice 4. Let's change this to be something like dice 5. And lastly, I'm going to go ahead and change this to be something like dice 6. Okay, now to change the file paths, let me go ahead and change this to be dice 2's file path. That is going to be something like dice 3's file path. This one's going to be something like dice 4's file path. Let's go with something like 4. That's going to be dice 5. So what are you making now? Today, honestly, I am like working on making a dice roller program where my user can press buttons to actually have both my users' dice rolling and my enemies' dice rolling. Eventually, after like 10 rolls, the person that has the highest total of dice numbers that makes any sense, they win type stuff. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and change this to be something like dice 6. Although, here's the thing. Should I actually manually type my dices up here, or should I store them inside a vector? I could go ahead and store them inside a vector, honestly. Should I? Because since I do create textures, okay, I might actually not need surface. That's like a win for this part, honestly. Maybe I could try it this way. Once I'm done with all my dices, once I'm done adding the file path of all my dices, I'll have to get the width and height of all my dices here. For dice texture, why don't you make an array of SDL underscore texture? That actually does make sense. Hold up, guys. Let me actually mute myself real quick. Alright, mic testing, mic testing. Okay, I actually thought there was some background noises. Never mind. Okay, next up, let me see. So firstly, I go ahead and create, whatchamacallit, why don't you make an array of SDL underscore textures? I could actually do that. Hold up, guys. There's background noises. Already mic testing, mic testing. Okay, guys, there were some kind of noises. That said, Hi doing Tall Gaming, I appreciate you joining the stream. Exactly that, guys, right, to use an array. That does make sense. I might actually use an array. Okay, bro, before all this, go and learn how to code and stop using AI. You could have done all this in short without using these same statements. Guys, where did AI come in the equation here? Okay, I don't hear any background noise except the background music. Oh, I see. Okay, that's it. Now, I could actually try using an array. Let me go ahead and delete this part. Maybe I'm going to go ahead and cancel all that, because actually that does sound like, that does feel like it's repeated a lot. Okay, so let's go ahead and create something like a dices array, which consists of, let's say, something like maybe 6 elements. Okay, so wait, actually, how do we use an array? I think I forgot. Hold on, guys, this is game graphics, that is dice. My array is going to be equal to something like... Okay, maybe should I go with something like SDL underscore texture, which is going to be represented by an array of dices. That is going to be something like 6. There we go, guys. I just needed a quick let brush up. Okay, now my dices array consists of 6 elements in it. Now, how do I set my... Could I go with something like a dice at index of 1 is going to be equal to... Let's go with something like... SDL, actually at SDL, I'm gonna go with something like dice. Let's go with something like dice. Okay, I can't just give my file path. I do gotta go ahead and use the image underscore open text. So use vector, better and easy. I could actually use a vector, use a for loop. Guys, there are so many ways to actually do this stuff. That said, use a for loop. Actually, yeah, let me go ahead and use a vector. So I could go ahead and create a standard vector. Let's go with something like a standard vector, which only consists of, let's say, something like SDL underscore texture. My vector only consists of textures as pointers. I'm going to be calling my vector something like dice. And then I'm going to go ahead and end my function with a... Actually, end my vector with a semicolon. Loop with strong manipulation. Strong, not... Oh, string, not strong. I see. Loop with string manipulation. That actually does make sense. Now, inside my vector, do I want to go ahead and set something like right here? I could go with something like my image underscore the load textures this function, which is going to be having 2 parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. Okay, yeah, use vector. It's easier to delete all the elements after the program ends. That actually does make sense. Okay, that said, now for my image underscore load texture, I would need like a renders as parameters. So maybe I add this inside of my function here. Actually, inside of my method. Let's go ahead and paste this here. There we go. Okay, now inside of my image underscore load texture, I'm going to go ahead and do something. Let's say I want to go ahead and add a parameter of my renderer. Okay, you really want texture pointers rather than texture objects in your vector? Do you really want texture pointers rather than texture objects? Honestly, I do want like texture pointers because I'm assuming like pointers point towards like a specific texture. But do you guys think like texture objects would be like better? Because eventually I am going to create objects of my classes type stuff. Okay, so the first is going to be renderer. Second is going to be a file path. I might go with something like dice slash... Let's go with something like dice1.png. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and end my function with a semicolon. Actually, I'm going to add a comma here. Now let's go ahead and paste this a bunch of times. Let's go with something like 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Guys, I think I ran my code by mistake. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste it for the 6th time. Now, inside, I'm going to change my file path. 1 is going to be changed to something like 2. 1 is going to be changed to something like 3. 1 is going to be changed to something like 4. 1 is going to be changed to something like 5. And lastly, I'm going to change this 1 to something like 6. Okay, and then instead of a comma, I'm going to go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Maybe end my vector with a semicolon. There we go. Use numeric numbers and renaming images. Numeric numbers and renaming images. Okay, I think pointer is better than object, as pointer is better for memory. That actually does make sense. Okay, use numeric numbers and rename images. Honestly, what does that actually mean? I was like gonna go with something like dice and index of 1 is like dice 1, dice and index 2 is like dice 2 type stuff. Then use a loop with string manipulation. That actually does sound kind of cool, but I don't actually know how to do that stuff. Okay, that's it. Let's see. So I create a void method. I go ahead and load all my images in here. Once I'm done loading my images, let's see. Okay, I go ahead and this is my texture. I want to get my textures as width and height, so I might go with something like a for loop. So let's go with something like for every integer of I, which equals to 0, while my I is less than my dice dot size, my vectors is size. I want to increment my I by 1. Instead of dice 1, use dice 1. Oh, I see. Okay, that actually does sound kind of cool as well. Okay, let's go with something like dice 2. Let's go with something like dice 3. Let's go with dice 4. Let's change that to dice 5. I might go with something like dice 5. And lastly, I'm going to change 6 to something like dice 6. Okay, now I'm going to be using an index-based for loop here. I don't think that's the best option. Actually, use another class for dice texture and the dice itself, and you can delete all elements in the destructor, deconstructor. Honestly, okay, actually, I could go ahead and change this class to be something like dice class. And then let's go ahead and remove my public content inheritance from here. Now this is officially a dice's class. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and use a for loop. He's right, use for loop for importing the textures. So for importing the textures. Actually, would it be possible, because all my textures are like different, so like I gotta give different file paths for my textures. If I use a I need to like manually import my textures as file path here, then later I can use a for loop for getting my textures as width and height. Okay, already we're using vectors, so no need. That actually does make sense. Okay, now I could go ahead and create a floating point variable of my textures as width and my textures as height, ending with a semicolon. Then I want to go ahead and get the width and height for all my textures. I might go ahead and use the SDL underscore the get texture sizes function. I want to get the texture size for all my textures at once. So my texture is going to be my dice at index of I, and then my second parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures as width. The third parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures as height, ending with a semicolon. Now I might need a rect as well, just for the same ones, like all dice ones. I see. Honestly, I feel like I just have like one dice one, because I'm going to be having like a dice with 6 different heads in it type stuff. That's let's see. So I create a texture. Now I gotta go ahead and create a direction rect as well. So I might go ahead and add a private data member here called something like a SDL underscore f rect, which is going to be represented by a rect's local variable ending with a semicolon. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add a few let's say I'm going to add a few attributes for my rect.width excuse me guys, equals to my textures width multiplied by my scale ending with a semicolon. And then let's go with something like rect.height equals to my textures height multiplied by my scale ending with a semicolon. Okay, glad that actually made a lot of sense when I was doing it. Alright, once I'm done with this, once I'm done loading all my PNGs in, let's see, is there something else that I want to do? I'm done loading my image, I'm done getting my textures as width and my textures as height. Is there something else to... Maybe I go ahead and now display my texture on my windows, so I could go with something like... Maybe... Okay, so I might go with another for loop for displaying all my textures at once, but I want them to be displayed in different locations. Okay, since I want them to be displayed in different places, I might not use a for loop. I could go with something like SDL underscore render textures function, which is going to be consisting of a few parameters. The first is going to be my render. The second is going to be my texture. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to be maybe dice at index. Would it be worth it to actually do it all separately? Maybe I actually do want to use a for loop after all, so I'm gonna go with something like for every integer of I which equals to 0, while my I is less than my dice dot size, my vectors size, I want to go ahead and increment my I by 1. Then I go with the prof creative braces and use the SDL underscore render textures function. Let's go with something like render texture with a prof parentheses. that requires a render's parameter, a dice's parameter, which in this case is going to be dice at index of I. The third parameter is going to be a source rect. Since I don't have a source rect, I'm going to be sending it to be something like null PDR. And lastly, I might need something like a DST rect, a direction rect, which in this case is going to be the memory address of my rect. Then I end my function with a semicolon. Now, here's the thing. I want to go ahead and change my position of my dices every single time, or there's just going to be one above the other dice. How to do that? Maybe I display my dices first and think about the rest later on. Okay, so I display my dice on my window, and then I get the textures within height, so the dice isn't going to be that big. Thirdly, I might want to go ahead and destroy all my textures as well. So after I'm done, maybe I create another for loop. I'm gonna go with something like for a parentheses. Let's say something like for every integer of I which equals to 0, while my I is less than my dice dot size, I go ahead and increment my I by 1. Alright guys, there we go. Okay, then I'm gonna go with the prof curly braces, and then I'll use the SDL underscore destroy textures structure, which is going to be consisting of a texture's local variable representing it. I think I spelled destroy wrong there. There we go. Okay, now my texture is going to be my dice at index of I, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. And that seems to be about it. Okay, once I'm done with that, now I'm going to go inside my main loop. I did initialize my SDL, so I'm going to use a if statement to initialize my true texture font as well. Okay, for every integer of I which equals to 1, while my I is less than or equal to 6, I increases by 1, standard string path equals to dice plus standard to string I.png. Okay, I did use the standard to string up here in my function, like right here, to convert my where's it gone? To convert my totals as variable to be something like a standard strings is total, but my dices are PNGs. Do I gotta like really convert them to like strings? So I go with standard string path. My file path is gonna be. Oh, I see. Okay, I actually see what you actually mean there. Okay, so basically what it actually means, like dice slash dice, it's just going to be adding something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. I could actually do that, to be honest. Do I want to do that though? Okay, standard string I plus. I want to do that. That does sound genius. Maybe I actually do it. I think I'll save my laziness for like another time. Bro, your mother tongue English? I mean, you guys could say something like that because like I have been speaking English like more than any other language. Okay, so I go ahead and create a dice texture. This is going to be called something like dice, ending with a semicolon. Let's see. Now let's go with a for loop. Okay, honestly, that was genius. I usually don't like deleting my code and like writing the same thing, but this actually might be really fun to do. I'm gonna go with something like for every integer of I which equals to something like 0, while my I is less than or equal to 6, I'm gonna go ahead and increment my I by 1. Then I go with the prof curly braces. I'm gonna go ahead and create a standard string of file paths variable or path, which is gonna be equal to, I go with something like dice. Okay, maybe my file path, so dice slash dice. Okay, and then I'm gonna go with something like plus. Okay, the confusing part actually is not that confusing. I go with something like standard to underscore strings this function. Okay, which is going to be something like I that increases by 1 every single iteration. That is actually kind of genius. Plus .png. Okay, guys, why is this actually really genius? Hold up, let's go all the way down here. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and end this with a semicolon. I is like numbers. So I standard to string. This is going to be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. And then 6, and then .png. Okay, no. Equal to is less than. Okay, while my I is less than, if you're using 0, equal to, no equal to, only less than. So I could go ahead and type something like equal to. So while my I is less than 6. Yo, bro, remember me? Hi, Zorger. I appreciate you joining the stream. Honestly, I do remember you. Okay. No, equal to, only less than if you're using 0. Honestly, I'm not using 0. So while my I is less than 6, which means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, in that case, wouldn't 0 be added here like this? Because I don't have a file path called 0. I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I could go with something like, while my I is something like greater than or greater than 1. Okay, so greater than or equal to 1. And less than or equal to 6. Then I increment my I by 1. Can't I use and here? Oh, I plus 1. Alright up guys, let's go with something like greater than 6. So I could go with something like I plus 1. It starts with 1 now. Guys, that's actually genius. Why can't I like think of this like on the instincts? Can you explain method with parameters without any return and no return? Can you explain method with parameters and without any return and no return? Basically, methods are technically like functions inside of classes are called methods, and methods with parameters are basically the stuff like, for example, inside my main loop, I will be having a render as a structure. I'm going to be having a scale and all that stuff. So my user is going to be required to like fill in these parameters, which in this case, it's going to be my renderer. And my scale, I could go with something like, I don't know, maybe like 0.8 for my scale. If that made any sense, guys. Okay, what stream did you study? Honestly, I do like study while I'm actually programming like right now. Like I have almost like, when I started a stream, I have like zero knowledge whatsoever and like what I'm going to do unless I've done any of these streams before that. But then eventually I do like get to know on how to do these stuff and it becomes easier. Okay, slowly, bro. Basically, whatchamacallit, we use methods as functions here. So I could go ahead and create an object for my dices class and do something like a dice object dot the display dices method. Then when I do the dot display dices method, I need to fill in these two parameters and then this entire function executes here type stuff. Basically, the reason we create classes and methods here is to keep our main loop really clean, because I could go ahead and like add all the stuff inside of my main loop and all that, but later on it gets really complicated to actually add more content to your code, if that makes any sense. Okay, that's it. This was like pretty much it. Now I want to check if my display dices method actually works. So I'm gonna go and add a if statement here and fill in a few content inside of my main loop. Firstly, I want to initialize my true texture font, so I'm gonna go with if not true texture font underscore init. If my true texture font was not initialized properly, then I want to display myself and edit text. So I'm gonna go with a standard C edit with an insertion operator that says something like TDF underscore init error. Okay, then I go with another insertion operator and use the function that actually gets me an error. In the for loop, shouldn't it be less than 6 instead of greater than 6? Did I go with greater than 6? While my I is... Guys, I'm like so stupid when it comes to this stuff. There we go. How do you guys like even catch these things? Start with integer I equals to 1. I can actually do that as well. Okay, then I wouldn't need the I plus 1 here. Okay, I mean guys, there's so much that I'm learning here right now. This is like really fun. Now if I were to scroll all the way down here, I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL underscore get errors this function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm gonna go with something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Lastly, I return one saying something is wrong with this block of code. Now once I'm done initializing everything, I'm gonna go ahead and add a comment that says something like game variable. These are going to be the basic game variables that I'm going to be requiring. For example, I might go ahead and require something like an integer variable of something like width, which is going to be my Window's width. I'm going to be setting it to something like 1000 ending with a semicolon. Then I might need something like an integer of height variable, that is my texture's height, actually my Window's height. I'm going to set that to be something like 800 ending with a semicolon. I would declare the dice variable in private instead of a function that gets called every frame. It can it can cause overhead projector and memory leak. That does make sense actually. I could actually go ahead and get my vector as a private data member. I mean, it would honestly be the same thing, but if it's in private, then it does not like execute every single iteration of my loop. Okay, that actually does make sense. This is gonna like make my, like, when I actually add my function inside of my while loop, it's not gonna like work every single iteration type stuff. That said, once I'm done with my game variables, I'm gonna go ahead and add a comment that says something like create window and renderer. I'm gonna go ahead and create both my window and my renderer at the same time. Okay, to do that, I would need two local pointers. The first local pointer is going to be representing my SDL_window as a structure. I'm going to be calling it something like window and setting it to be something like nullptr, which is a placeholder for pointers. The second pointer is going to be representing my SDL_renderer as a structure. My pointer is going to be called something like renderer, that is going to be equal to something like nullptr ending with a semicolon. And then once I'm done getting both my pointers, I'm going to use the function that actually creates both my window and my renderer at the same time. So I'm going to use the SDL_create something, I don't know, maybe window. So let's go with something like window, and renderer is this function. This function creates both my window and my renderer at the same time, but it does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be title/a caption for my window. I might go with something like dice roller program. Okay, then my second and third parameter is going to be my windows' width and my windows' height, which is going to be my width and height variable /1800. The fourth parameter is going to be, let's say, if that for window, if you guys don't want to add a flag, you guys could go with something like 0, but I do want to add a flag that makes my window resizable, so I'm going to go with something like SDL_window_v. What up, guys? This is going to be uppercase window _v sizable. So there we go. Okay, and then I think I spelled resizable wrong. There we go. Okay, and then the fifth and sixth parameter is going to be the memory address of my window, and my renderer is this pointer. So I'm going to use the address of operator window and the address of operator for my renderer. Once I'm done with that, I end my function with a semicolon. Okay, now once I'm done creating my window and renderer, since this is a C++, I'm gonna add a if statement to check if my window and renderer were not created properly. Bro, teach me DevOps? Honestly, I haven't like heard of that. Is it like, does DevOps like mean development? Okay, I'm gonna go with something like if not window, if my window was not created properly, or not a renderer, if my renderer was not created properly, then I'm gonna go ahead and do something. Firstly, I'm going to add a standard C error and display myself an error text, which in this case is going to be something like SDL_create window. So let's go with something like create window and rendered error. Basically what I did was like type my function name and slapped an error after that. Okay, then I'm going to go with another insertion operator and use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'm going to use the SDL_getErrors as function. And then I'll add another insertion operator, and I don't know, maybe go with something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if either my window or my renderer were not created properly, I do want to exit my SDL, so I'm going to go with something like SDL_quit with a parentheses ending with a semicolon. Don't forget to call delete dice in deconstructor. If you don't do this, you can leak memory. Okay, you can use a for each loop. I could actually do that. Don't forget to call delete dice. Honestly, I did not create a constructor here. Would it make... Can I create a destructor without actually creating a constructor in my dices class? Okay, so my dices class and my method ends here. Would a destructor even work here for auto at I equals to dice delete I? I could actually do that. Okay, maybe let me actually try that. I'm pretty sure for like using auto, I gotta go ahead and include the algorithms and libraries. So I'm gonna go with something like algorithms. So there we go. Okay, DevOps equals development and operating together and operations together. Honestly, I haven't like heard of that, but that does sound kind of cool. Okay, let's see. And then lastly, I'm gonna go ahead and return one ending with a semicolon. Now about the deleting the whatchamacallit, my dice's textures. So delete dice in deconstructor. If you don't do this, you can leak memory. Okay, so I mean, I'm assuming if I like use a for loop here, so I gotta delete I. Okay, maybe let's try that. So I'm gonna go with something like a for loop. So let's go with something like for But I gotta like create a destructor for that. Sorry, I meant for every auto I. Okay, colon dice not I equals to. Oh, I see. Okay, should I like create something like a destructor? Like I go with something like tilde and then something like for my dices class. Okay, wait, you didn't. Okay, I don't think it's a destructor. It's a deconstructor. I think deconstructor and destructor are two different things. So I might go with something like for a pair of parentheses. Let's say for something like for every auto. Okay, I think the auto should be like lowercase. There we go. For every auto at I. Okay. In my dice's vector, I'm gonna go ahead and do something. I'm gonna go with the pair of curly braces for every SDL texture. Oh, I see. Okay, I'm gonna go with something like let's see, delete I. But to actually use the delete, should I like use something like new? Like, can I go with delete I, ending with a semicolon? I did not know I could use the delete keyword without using the new keyword. Okay, can I like search what this does? Void code DECL operator delete void block size. Okay, I mean, is this like pretty much it to like delete everything? Because I could have sworn that we use something like new before we can actually use delete type stuff. I think I was wrong, guys. I might actually look into that after completing this part. Now, once I'm done creating my window and renderer, I'm gonna go ahead and add a comment that says something like create objects. I'm going to be creating an object here. I'm going to be creating an object representing my dices class. I'm going to call it something like dice. I think Banji, I appreciate you joining the stream. That's it. Now, once I'm done with my dice, I'm going to go ahead and add another comment that says something like main loop. Yo, hiding your master, I appreciate you joining the stream as well. Be back. Okay, so for my main loop, I'm going to be requiring two variables. The first variable is going to be a boolean variable of something like is running, which is initially going to be set to true, ending with a semicolon. The second variable is going to be an event variable represented by events' local variable. And guys, when I said this, this is a SDL underscore events structure. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and create a while loop. So let's go with something like while a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like while is running, while my program is running, or while my is running is set to true. I'm gonna go ahead and add a comment that says something like event loop. Now, event loop is basically a while loop inside of a while loop / a nested while loop. Where did you learn this from? Honestly, I did like learn it from like ChatGPT, but then later on, once I did understand the basics, I tried implementing the logic like I'm doing right now for like most of the stuff here, because I did like learn the basics and then I'm trying to use the logic to like create more logic, if that makes any sense, guys. Okay, next up, my events while loop is going to be consisting or required or would be requiring a SDL underscore poll events function as a parameter. My SDL underscore poll events function requires the memory address of my event variable as a parameter. Then I go with a pair of curly braces. Now inside my while loop, I'm gonna go ahead and add a if statement to check something. I'm gonna check if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore quit. If my event type is quit, if my user click the top right X button to exit my window, I'm going to go ahead and do something. Firstly, I want to set my is running to be equal to something like false, ending with a semicolon. That ends my entire program. Okay, now for my second event loop, I actually don't think that I have any kind of event loops right now. I might add like my other event loops, like depending on what button I have, my dice roll and all that stuff. Before that, I want to go ahead and exit outside of my event loop. Add a comment that says something like fill screen. While loop and loop, basically the outer while loop is in charge of all my outer events, like adding my graphics, presenting my render, and like all those general stuff like applying physics and all that stuff. My event loop, it runs as long as my while loop is running. But then my event loop is in charge of any of my mouse clicks, any of my keyboard presses, or any of my event types in general. Like if I type something, if that makes any sense, guys. For example, my SDL underscore event underscore quit means if my user clicks the top right X button, that sets my is running to be false, which ends my entire outer loop. If that makes any sense, guys. I feel like I didn't like explain that part properly. For dice, you should create a constructor because you don't want to import your textures each frame. Just do it once in you don't wanna import your textures each frame. Just do it once in constructor and delete in deconstructor when the class goes out of scope. I could actually do that. Before that, let's go with something like full screen. Now, if I scroll all the way up here, okay, so for dice, I should create a constructor. So should create a constructor because you don't want to import your textures each frame. That actually does make sense. This is going to import it each frame. Okay, just do it once in constructor and delete it in a deconstructor. By deconstructor, do you mean like destructors? For example, there's like destructors that goes with something like the tilde of dice with a parentheses that I don't think requires any parameters. I don't know what parameters. It's been a while since I've like used destructors. Let's see. Okay, so I go with something like methods, but before my methods, I'm gonna go ahead and create a constructor. So I'm gonna go with something like constructor. Now I might create a dices constructor. Excuse me, guys. Now here's the thing with my dices constructors. What parameters do I want to add in here? I could go with something like a renderer parameter, a scale parameter, but if I actually add those parameters, isn't that like, I don't like see how a constructor would be used here, because in that case I gotta like add all these methods, I mean actually all these for loops inside of my constructor type stuff. Okay, tilde dice, yeah, that one. And yes, it doesn't get any parameters and it doesn't return anything. Oh, I see. Okay, so should I like add all this inside of my constructor? Because I actually could do that. Okay, maybe I go ahead and copy everything until my until I don't destroy my textures. Let's go ahead and copy that, delete it from here, and I'm gonna go ahead and add a pair of curly braces and paste it inside of my constructor. Now my constructor is going to be requiring two parameters or two variables, actually two parameters of my renderer and my scales. There we go. Okay, then I go ahead and exit outside of my constructor. But here's the thing, I tried this stuff before. I cannot render inside my constructor type stuff. The loops needs to call the loops which needs to call every frame needs to be in that function, but for file path you should do it in a constructor. Oh, I see. Okay, so the loop that okay, so the loops which needs to be called every frame. My scale should be called every frame, my dice should be called every frame. I gotta destroy every frame as well. So I could go ahead and copy this and paste it inside of my, there we go, paste it right here. Okay, just use it instead of other loop. It's already running each frame. If not it, I see. Okay, now let me actually use a destructor as well. So I'm gonna go with something like destructor. Okay, here's the thing. Is it called destructor or a deconstructor? Deconstructor makes more sense than destructor. But I could use something like tilde of dice, which does not require any parameters, but I'm gonna add a standard console output with an insertion operator that says something like destructor. Okay, let's go with something like destructor activated. There we go, with a forward slash new line ending with a semicolon. Okay, now I think that's actually pretty much it. So I'm gonna go inside of my while loop. My dice's object here is going to be requiring two parameters. First is going to be render, second is going to be scale, which I'm going to be setting it to be 0.1, which is 10% of its original size, ending with a semicolon. Now, to fill my screen, I'm firstly going to drink some water, because I'm kind of thirsty, honestly. Alright guys, let me drink some water real quick. Okay, now for filling my screen, let's see. Firstly, I could go ahead and, I don't know, maybe go with something like SDL underscore set render draw colors this function. Basically, what the set render draw colors function does is it like sets my render to draw a color, because my render is like a paintbrush that colors what I tell it to color, but I do gotta set a color for it. That was a tongue twister, guys. What color do I want my window to be? Maybe I want it to be like a light purple. Let me check the RGB for that. Let me say something like, what is the RGB for a light purple? There we go. Okay, so it's 246, 206, and 252. This is the first time that I'm going to be using light purple as my background color. RGB is going to be 246, 206, and 252. So I'm going to go with 252. and then my alpha slash opacity is going to be 255. Okay, then end my function with a semicolon. Alright, once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and use the function that actually clears my entire screen with my color slash fills my entire screen. So I'm going to use the render clear function, which consists of a render's parameter. Do you know CSS? Honestly, I haven't started CSS, but I did want to go through that. Excuse me again, guys. Maybe in the future I might actually try CSS. Okay, now once I'm done filling my screen, I'm going to go ahead and add another comment that says something like graphics. This is the actual complex part, guys, or the main part. Okay, you then deleted the vector elements in the structure, and also deleting the texture that you use each frame is overhead. You're just creating the textures and deleting it each frame. Is there a different way to use the structure in that case? Delete the textures and the structures. I mean, okay, if I were to copy this to delete my textures, would that make any sense? So let's go ahead and paste this here. Oh, I see. So I check inside my dice's vector. If there is something, then I delete that something. Okay, should I actually delete my this stuff as well? Should I add my for be auto I or my... I forgot what kind of for loop was this called. This is not index based. I think I actually forgot what kind of for loop was this called. But should I get this up there as well? Please teach SQL. Guys, honestly, I haven't learned SQL. That's it. I might actually learn SQL. I've heard that it's pretty easy. Okay, should I get my for auto I dice delete I? Okay, this is delete I, which this is delete all my elements inside of my vector. Let me go ahead and copy that. I might actually get that here as well. Okay, here's a quick question. So if I deleted everything using a for loop here, why did I need this for loop as well? Because don't both of them actually delete everything from inside my vector? Okay, I mean, I could look that up actually. That for each you should do it in dice. I see. Okay, if the for each is in dice, should I get my destroy texture inside of my display dices method? I think I should actually. Okay, let's see. So let's go ahead and delete that part. Okay, let's go ahead and paste it here. Okay, here I do delete my texture every iteration here as well. Then I mean, wouldn't deleting it once suffice or something? Should I actually delete it every single time type stuff? I mean, I could check that. That's it. Now for my graphics, let's see what would I need. I might actually go with something like my dice's object dot the, let's say something like display dice on Windows's function. I'm gonna go with something like display dice. There we go. Okay, with a parentheses, now my display dice method requires two parameters. It requires a render's parameter and a scale, which in this case I'm going to be setting it to be something like 0.8, ending with a semicolon. Okay, my constructor requires a scale parameter as well. I might change it to something like 0.1. I don't want it to be too big. My constructor has a scale, then why does my my constructor would not need any parameters in that case? Okay, because I actually don't even use my render for anything here. So I'm gonna scroll all the way down here to my constructor and let's remove these parameters from here. There we go. Okay, now once I'm done displaying my dice on my window, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like present renderer. Okay, to present my render, I'm gonna use the SDL_render presents this function with a pair of parentheses that does require parameter of my renderer ending with a semicolon. Then I'm going to go with something like FPS as well. So I'll use the SDL_delays function, which consists of a parameter in milliseconds. That is going to be 16, which is technically 60 frames per second. Once I'm done with all that, I'm going to go ahead and add a comment outside my for loop. No, the first one clears the SDL texture, but the second one deletes the elements of the vector. Oh, I see. Wait, if I delete the elements of my vector, wouldn't that be the same exact thing as clearing my textures? Because my texture is inside of my vector, if that makes any sense? Or, I think I see, wait, hold up, by elements, do you mean every time a texture is added inside of my vector is still 6 elements long, but then, It just doesn't have texture, so it's an empty vector that size is like 6. Would that make sense? Okay, let's go with something like cleanup. Now, for my cleanup, I'm firstly going to destroy my windows. I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy windows as function, which does require parameter of my window ending with a semicolon. Next up, I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore destroy textures as function, which consists of, my bad guys, not texture, I mean renderer. Let's go with something like destroy renderers as function, which requires a renderers as local variable ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore quit with a parentheses ending with a semicolon. Lastly, I return 0. Now, if I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Hiding Victor, I appreciate you joining the stream. So I get my console here and then waiting for my window. My window did compile. Okay, so it is like a taro color window. If I were to extend this, I don't see my texture anywhere, but I did draw a texture. It says destructor activated. My destructor was activated, but I don't see my textures. So dice.display. Dice.display dice, okay. The size is 0.1. Is there a reason why I didn't see my my texture? Okay, probably because I didn't set an x-axis and y-axis for my texture. Maybe I manually set something. I'll go with something like rect.x-axis equals to something like 100, ending with a semicolon. Rect.y-axis equals to 100 as well, ending with a semicolon. Now if I hit y-axis, now if I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my console here and I get my window here. In my window, I did not see my my PNGs up here. It's definitely, could it be my file path that's not being loaded, or could it be that my destructor is deleting everything before it actually displays on my window? Let's see, maybe what if I go ahead and remove my destructor just for a bit to check if it actually makes a difference. Okay, you're not pushing the data inside the vector, am I not? Didn't I actually push stuff? What up guys? So, for every integer of I which equals to 1 my I, okay, I do this stuff. Oh wait, should I go with something like my dice dot the push underscore back function? I want to push back my I. Actually, wait, the I wouldn't make sense. Should I go with something like, wait, I don't think I should add it here. Hold up guys, this is my file path. For oh, I should go with path at index of I. Okay, let's go with something like Control Z. I'm guys to go with push underscore back. I'm going to go with something like that at index of I. Dice dot push underscore back. Did I like mess something up here? Okay, so this is inside my for loop. These are my file. Okay, wait, this is my file path. Hold on, guys. I'm not trying to push my file path inside. That was stupid. I want to push my texture inside my vector. Where is it that I do load my textures here though? These are my textures as file paths. Maybe my constructor requires something like SDL underscore renders a structure. But I don't go with something like image underscore load texture. You have to push SDL texture. That actually does make sense. Okay, I like the consistency, man. Honestly, I appreciate you. Aminech, is that how you pronounce your name? That actually means the world to me, guys. Okay, so I get my texture size here. Once I get my texture size here, okay, so dice at index of I is my texture, but I don't have a texture that goes in my dice because my textures is my file path. So I think I have an idea to do this thing. Instead of going with something like a standard string path, maybe I go with something like SDL underscore texture, which equals to image underscore load texture. Okay, so let's actually try something. I might go with something like SDL underscore texture, which is going to be called something like, which is going to be a pointer towards my texture. That is going to be equal to my image underscore the load texture function with a pair of parentheses. Now I require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be a renderer. The second parameter is going to be my file path. which in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and copy this. Let's go ahead and delete that real quick and paste it here. That's my file path. Then I go ahead and end my function with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. Huh. Wait, did I like mess something up with my file path, guys? Hold on. This is my texture. Okay. Maybe I go ahead and create. This is going to be my texture. Hold on, guys. I might actually delete this part real quick. So let's go ahead and change this to be something like texture. And then I'm going to go ahead and create something like a standard string. Let's go with something like standard string of path variable, which is going to be equal to, let's go ahead and copy this. Okay, and then delete it from here. Let's go ahead and paste it there, ending with a semicolon. So this is my file path. I'm going to go ahead and add my path variable here. Okay, let's see the error. It says standard string path. No suitable conversion function from standard string to constant character exists. My file path. Should I use the .c underscore string, this function? Work, guys. Okay, perfect. Now that that worked, let's see. Yo, bro, hiding some hours. I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, guys, this did get me sweating a bit, but this actually works. What's up today? Honestly, today I'm working with like randomness in SDL3. I did like think of making a dice roller program type stuff, where when I click a certain button, my enemies' dice and my players' dice both rolls off, and then the person that gets the highest number of total by the end of like 10 rounds actually wins type stuff. I spent a lot of time drawing those PNGs yesterday, guys. I want to see them on my video today. My dice requires a parameter of my renderer, ending with a semicolon. Now I want to drink some water. Oh, and I just realized, guys, there's 20 more subscribers for like my 2,000 subscribers like goal, or actually subscribers goal. Let's smash the subscribe button, guys. Oh damn, that's something really different today. Honestly, yeah, because I've been working on like text-based AI logic for a long time, but I did want to work with like randomness too, because eventually, if I do want to actually make a game that has AI logic, I want to add like randomness to that game as well. So I feel this is really good content. Okay, I like your brain. You figured out so fast and you forgot to push. Oh, I actually forgot to push. What's up, guys? For real, he does. Honestly, does that actually make sense, guys? That's it. I actually forgot to push back stuff. That's it. Let's see. Let me actually go ahead and maybe let's go with something like my dice. Dice at index. Actually, I might go with something like my dice's vector dot the push underscore back function. Let's say I want to go ahead and push back my texture, so I'm going to go with something like texture, ending with a semicolon. Okay, should I go with, what if I go with something like texture at index of I? Okay, maybe just texture, guys. Okay, what's your PC specs? Honestly, I do like, I did like try searching what does specs actually means. Apparently, I think specs is like, what's the RAM and everything. I think I have like a 32 GB of RAM, and I'm using the MSI's motherboard, and I'm using the graphics card that is like integrated inside of my motherboard type stuff. I feel like that's like actually pretty much it for my specs. If I actually understood the meaning of specs correct. That's it. If I did Control-S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my console here and my window here, but I do not see my PNGs anywhere. Bro, been since your stream, every time I'm on YouTube, your consistency is insane. Keep up the work, man. Hope it pays off eventually. Honestly, it does make sense. I appreciate you so much. Yanmif, is that how you pronounce your name? That actually means the world to me, guys. Okay, your dice class looks good. Actually, it does look kind of good, because usually I, manually add more stuff, but this was kind of genius. Okay, so the dice class does look good, but then I can't actually see my dice on my screen. Is it because I pushed my stuff in, I pushed my texture inside of my dice's class in my for loop? What if I go outside? Okay, I can't go outside of my for loop because my texture is inside my for loop. Maybe, let's see. What happens if I remove my destructor for a bit? If I did Control-S to save the code and run the command, let's see if my dice is actually showing. Okay, it actually still doesn't show. I need to actually think, why does it not show? Okay, I know what the problem, honestly. What's it, guys? I think that it's really hard to figure this part out, but I feel like, what could the problem be? Could it be that you're deleting the texture right after creating the texture function? Okay, when someone asks specs, they ask for CPU, GPU, and RAM, and 32 GB RAM is fire, bro. Oh, I see. Okay, so my CPU is the Intel, I think it's something like Intel 19 CPU. My GPU is the one that is integrated inside of my motherboard. My RAM is 32 GB, and yeah, that's actually pretty much it. Okay, you're deleting the texture right after creating the I function. You're deleting the texture. Okay, wait, why do I have two delete textures? Okay, wait, I do have two delete. Wait, I have one render texture, so I render my texture first and then I delete my texture. You're deleting the texture right after creating the texture. But isn't this how we actually do it? That's usually how I do it. I like first present my texture on my window and then I delete it. That's it. Let's remove that and check if I can see my texture on my window. I still can't. Let me think really hard. What is something that's actually limiting me from seeing it on my screen? What if I go with a bunch of Control Z's? Could it be my position? I don't think so. Is it my scale? Not position, not scale. What could it be? So let's see. Maybe my texture is somehow not loading on my screen. To get it on my screen, I have my positions here. Okay, so I go with dice at index of I, textures width, textures height. Is my file path correct? So I go with something like dice plus standard string I plus 1. I gotta go with, nope, my integer I starts with 1. While my I is less than 6, I increment my I by 1. Print your file path in the loop. Print your file path. Honestly, I could actually, let's actually try it. Print my file path on my loop. Okay, let's go with something like add a standard console output with an insertion operator. I want to go ahead and say something like file path. Okay, let's go with another insertion operator of my path variable. So let's go with another insertion operator of a standard line ending with a semicolon. Now, if I did Control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens, I get my console here and I get my window here. I think it's correct. Hey bro, keep going. Your stream is... Okay, keep going. You're streaming and cool. Honestly, I appreciate you, Daniel. That actually means the world to me, guys. Okay, so I have dice/dice1.png, dice/dice. There we go. My file paths were wrong. Check your file name, bro. There we go. Honestly, guys, yeah, my file path was wrong. Let's go with something like Alt-Shift-L. Get my solution explorer here. Go with my file path. So I have something like dice. Okay, let's change my dice's names here. Let's change that to something like 2. This is going to be something like dice2. Okay, let's go with dice2.png. Let's change this to be something like dice1.png. Hold up, guys. Gotta be really careful when doing this stuff. Let's change this to be something like dice6.png. Let's change that to be something like dice3.png. Let's change that to be something like 3. And then let's change this to be something like dice4.png. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to change this to be something like dice5.png. No wonder I couldn't see my dices on my screen, guys. Okay, wait. Did you rename your file names or not? Honestly, no, I did not like rename my my dice's names here. Okay, that's it. Now I could, now, whatchamacallit, now I should be seeing my, my file paths on my window. So I get my console here, and I get my window here. I don't see my dice. Okay. Okay, so I get a debug assertion failed. Why do we get this error? This is the second time I've seen this error. That said, let's go with something like abort. So I'm gonna go ahead and abort this. Let's go ahead and exit that. Did you rename your file names or not? Okay, so my file path that I expect. Let's go with Alt-Shift-L again. I think I did not set my file path to be correct. Open File Explorer. So we go with dice2. So dice/dice2.png, dice/dice3.png. It should be correct actually. Where am I messing up? What if I were to go ahead and hit debug, go with start debugging with F5. So let me hit F5 again. I mean, I do get my console here, so I can like hit F5 by showing that. Hold on, guys. Let me actually get this in the other window. Okay, let's go with F5. Wait, I've been debugging. Is this how debugging actually works? Okay, maybe I exit my debugging. Okay, so it says has exited code 00x0. Guys, I thought that's how we usually debug. Okay, so it says something like automatically close the console when debugging stops. I see. Okay, I couldn't see the error, what it said. Let me actually run the code. I might get the error again. If auto exited. So I get a Microsoft Visual C++ one-time library debug assertion failed program project x64 debug SDL3 project. What does it say? It says min kernel. Can I extend the size of it? Okay, I can actually increase the size of it. There we go. Okay, just press retry to debug the application. Let's go with something like retry. Okay, maybe debug doesn't work. Why I is less than 6 if you're starting with 1? If I'm starting, don't we check if our I is less than our vectors' size? But in this case, since I just have 6 dices and I start at 1, then I want to load like all my 6 dices. Hold on, guys. That actually does make sense. Let me scroll all the way down here. What are you doing? Honestly, I'm working on making a dice roller program in C++. So let's go all the way up here till my constructor for every integer of I which equals to 1 while my I is less than 6. I starts at 1. What if I go with less than or equal to 6? If I were to hit less than or equal to 6, I can go with greater than. Okay, less than. If I were to control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my console and I get my window. If I exit my window, I get the same error here. Okay, maybe I go ahead and just abort this for the time being. Let's go ahead and remove the equal to here. Go with Control A, Control C, copy that. Let's get sensei/ChatGPT here. Why he doesn't use debugger or breakpoints to find out what's happening with this code? Honestly, I would have, but I actually don't know how to do that stuff. Like, how do we actually do that? I remember back when I actually start without debugging, back when I used debugger once, one of you guys did help me like on chat. Ever since I didn't know how to use a debugger. Okay, how do we like, maybe should I go with like a right click to add breakpoints or something? I could have sworn before breakpoints did work. For some reason right now it does not work. If I were to exit this, okay, it says unknown block breakpoint instructor executed. Huh. Am I like missing something here? Free underscore dbg free block. What up, guys? Am I like missing something up here? And this is not my folder though. Maybe I go with something like Control A, Control C, copy that. Let's get sensei/ChatGPT here. Okay, let's go ahead and paste this. Go with Shift Enter and say something like sensei. I don't see my PNGs on my window. Let's see. And while I'm actually seeing that, I want to drink some water, guys. Kind of starving. Actually, kind of thirsty. Assertion failed means that a conditioner code that was expected to be true turned out to be false. Could it be something like when I initialize my SDL? Actually, not SDL, I initialize TDF. Those parts are correct. Something that should be true returned to be false. So in my display method, something that should be true. Okay, maybe could it be this part, my path.c string type stuff? Was that the mistake here? Okay, maybe let's read everything. Good, this is a real SDL bug, not a you don't understand randomness issue. And yes, you did several things right, which is why this is confusing. But I'm going to be very direct. Your PNGs are loading, your PNGs are being rendered, your PNGs are also being destroyed immediately and overwritten. You see nothing. Let's break it down. No mercy, no fluff. Fatal problem number 1. You destroy the textures every frame. Excuse me, guys. Look at this part. Okay, so I destroy them every frame. This is inside your render function. This runs every frame. So the flow is render texture, destroy texture, next frame to Render destroy texture, nothing shows. Rule, texture lives for the lifetime of the object, not the frame. Remove that loop completely. Textures should be only destroyed in the destructor or when you're 100% done with them. Fatal problem number 2, you're rendering all dice at the same position. I was going to change this part eventually. For every dice, so 7 if, so even if texture survived, all dice are stacked, last one writes the rest. That's not a bug, that's physics. Fatal problem number 3, you draw rectangles in one render, you draw rectangles in one loop, render in another. This is subtle but deadly. For rect, okay, you draw rectangles in one loop and render in another loop. This means rect ends up with the last size, all texture renders with the same rect. You must compute plus render pure texture. Fatal problem 4, your destructor is also wrong. You would auto to tell SDL texture is not deleted with delete. This causes undefined behavior. Correct destruction, SDL underscore destroy texture, the correct mental model, burn this in. Load texture, once constructors, store them in a container, render texture every frame, destroy them once in the destructor. I see, so I just gotta go with something like a floating point of x-axis, okay? So I just gotta like change my x-axes. Y-axis is gonna be scale. I see. Okay, so apparently the places where I was actually messing up was I destroy stuff inside of my display dice's function here. Usually I do it here as well. I highly doubt this part is actually going to change much, but it's worth a try honestly. And then next up, once I go with scale, I require something like a floating point of x-axis, which I'm going to be setting x-axis here because I want to change my x-axis for every single dice type stuff. Okay, now let's see. I destroy my destructor, change my file paths here, remove my x-axis, y-axis. Okay, that's it. Now, if I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Delete the SDL delete texture in the function. I see. Wait, delete the SDL delete texture in the function. Oh, I forgot I add a parameter here, guys. My bad. Okay, let's go ahead and add a parameter of something like 500. Now, if I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my console here. I get my window here. Okay, now it shows, but there's one small problem. They're all stacked above each other. I want to change their positions. How do I do that stuff? So let's see. Maybe to do that, I could go ahead and change my x-axis. How do I do that part? Let's see. Maybe I want to set a position for everything. Could I go with something like my dice? So could I go with something like my dice at index? But that is inside my private data member. I couldn't do that, guys. Okay, how do I change their positions? Okay, I think it was x multiplied by 1. I think it was x multiplied by 1. Was it x multiplied by 1? Would it be x multiplied by I? Would that make sense? I mean, I did not add an I here. My bad, guys. X multiplied by I. Huh. Would that actually make sense if I do x multiplied by I? I want to see what happens though. Okay, I think I'm gonna have like textures every single, like my texture is gonna be scattered because my I is gonna be 6 at times. So it's gonna be something like 500 multiplied by 6 type stuff. I get my console and I get my window. Okay, with the eyes, my texture is like they're like a really far location. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the eye from here. Okay, now I have like another question. Even though stuffs do get destroyed, I want to display them every single frame. Maybe instead of going with something like dice at index of I go with something like dice at index of 1. Oh, I see. Okay, hold up, guys. Let's go with something like I here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add something like my rect.x-axis is gonna be equal rect.x-axis. Maybe my dice at index of 0. Okay, I might go with something like my dice at index of 1 is gonna be equal to my rect dot Wait, I don't think this makes any sense. I want the position. Can I go with something like dot rect? This is not a method. This is not like an object to do that though. Okay, maybe I go with controller control C again. Let's get some say slash chat GPT up here. I wanna actually display my rect in different locations. Okay, and then rect x plus equals to, oh, I see, x plus equals to rect dot width plus 10. I think that's the only place that I messed up on. So let's scroll all the way up here. That is actually genius, speaking of it. So I might go with something like rect dot x-axis is going to be equal to my rect dot width plus 10. It's going to have a space between them every single time. If I did control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens, why don't you use plus plus I? I see. Okay, actually I could use it. Why didn't you use plus plus? Honestly, I could actually use plus plus. It's honestly the same thing. Okay, let's see. Because like plus plus increases stuff by 1. Wait, plus plus I. Is there a difference between I plus plus and plus plus I? I think that something might be different there. Okay, hold up guys. I gotta add this inside of my for loop. Let's go ahead and paste this here. There we go. Now if I did control S to save the code, but before that I'm going to change this position to be something like 100. Let's hit control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens. I get my console here. I get my window here, so I have my first dice here. I want to move my other dices as well. I just see one of my dices. Rect.x-axis is going to be equal to rect.width plus 10. Maybe I go with something like control C, copy this, give some say slash chat GP up here. Okay, so this is display dice. I have a for loop that gets my texture. I did this part, display my rect, and then x plus equals to space between dices. Okay, here's the thing. I went with Rex's dice. The thing that I was doing wrong here is I have to go with like just x-axis, which is my x-axis parameter up there. Now if I did control S to save the code and run the command. Okay guys, I hope this actually works. Everything is stuck together now. They don't actually move. Okay, I have 2 parameters up here. Oh, I see. I have a separate for loop up here. I might not need this for loop. There we go. This would make more sense now. Okay, so I go with SDL. This is going to be something like my dice. Wait, plus plus I. Hi doing AR Wison. I appreciate you joining the stream. Plus plus I is used. Okay, plus plus I, use it when you want to increment I and the new value immediately, but I plus plus when you need the original value of I before the incrementation. I see that actually does make sense. Plus equals to. Okay, I see. So I created one method. I have a for loop here that has all this stuff. Let's go ahead and copy the 2 of these. Delete this from here and paste it all the way here. Okay, let's go with dice at index of I. This would make more sense now than having 2 separate for loops. If I did control S to save the code and run the command, see what happens. I get my console here and I get my window here. Even though I get my window here, only my first dice is whatchamacallit, 10 pixels away from my other dices. Huh. Okay, maybe I go with something like control C, copy that. Let's get sensei slash chat GPT up here. Let's go ahead and paste this, go with shift enter and say something like sensei. It did work, exclamation, although only my first dice is 10 pixels away from my other dices. Okay, I think I should have gone with like dice because that's like the plural for dices. Okay, Sensei sees it and yes, it works, but it's limp. We fix that now. What's happening? Pure logic, not SDL magic. Look at this line inside your loop. You think you're moving the next? You think you're moving the next dice to the right? You're not. You're resetting X every single time to the same value. So this happens mentally. First dice draws at X, which equals to 0. Then you say X is now width plus 10. Next dice uses the same again. Result, all dice stack almost on top of each other, not nudge once. You advanced one, not progressively. You advance once, not progressively. This is a classic beginner trap. I'm yelling because I care. What you meant to say logically is move X forward by the width of the current dice plus spacing. That word matters, forward not set. Right now you're doing teleport X to a fixed number. You need walk X step by step, so the fix is not about SDL, it's about state. Each dice should push the next one further than the last. You're one operator away from doing it right. This is a good news, it means your brain is learning static logic. Bad news, I'm not letting you move on until you can explain this back. Okay, here's your challenge for a stream. Without touching the SDL function, explain in words the difference between X equals to something. I just realized what I did, guys. Okay, this was actually kind of awful. I gotta go with plus equals to. The augmented assignment operator. Now I'm not setting my X equal to something, I'm increasing my X's position by something. There we go. I should have actually seen that, guys. It's okay. Someone in the chat did say it as well. Durley, is that how you pronounce your name? There we go. Maybe I want to change his position to be something like 50. Okay, so I could scroll all the way down here. Let's change this to be something like 20. If I did Control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens. I get my console here. I get my window here. Speaking of windows, guys, why is one of my dice really small? And is it just me, or are their positions not positioning? Okay, why is one of my dice so small? Did I make a mistake drawing that PNG or something? Okay, what are you doing? Honestly, today I am like working with a dice roller program where like I spent a lot of time yesterday actually drawing my dice PNGs up here and also making like a score leaderboard type stuff. That's it. Today I spent like a lot of time trying to figure out how to like load these dice PNGs using for loops instead of adding 6 different dice PNGs. That makes any sense? For example, I created a dices class that has a rect local variable and a vector as well. Then I went ahead and created a constructor for my file path. So I created a path variable here. This is technically my file paths because I have 6 file paths. And then I went with a standard string of count to check if my file paths were loaded. That's little dice, guys. I gotta like fix that up. I could have sworn that I made all dices equally the same size. That's it. Then I loaded my texture, and then using a for loop, I displayed all my dices on my screen type stuff. Okay, that's it. Let's see. Now the next thing that I want to do is actually not show my dice on my screen anymore because I want to go ahead and work on loading my leaderboard on my screen. Okay, while all of them has different sizes, is it only me? Am I tripping? Guys, one of them has bro struggles with for loops. Guys, that actually does make sense. But I do understand that part right now. Okay, that's let's see. Okay, I feel like I think like it's not just you guys. Is it like actually that my dices are not even? Or is it just because of these sizes? Like, are these sizes actually not even, guys? I spent a lot of time yesterday trying to figure this part out. Okay, let's see. They look pretty even, guys. Are they not even? I know the last dice isn't even. Maybe, I gotta go ahead and change 5. Probably an illusion, guys. It actually does make sense because like it does not look even. Okay, maybe it's just the dice number 5. I gotta like fix that. Okay, that's it. Let's go ahead and exit this. Let's close this. I honestly, let's see. Let me go ahead and now display my leaderboard on my window. Except for the last one. That actually does make sense. I feel like they're all like the correct size because I did like whatchamacallit. In DaVinci, I like converted all of them to be like a PNG. I could have sworn it's all correct. The 4th one seems bigger to me. Actually, speaking of which, now the 4th one seems bigger to me as well. Could it be because they have different sizes and everything? Like one has just 1 dot, second has like 2 dots, third has 3 dots type stuff. The last one is much smaller. It actually does make sense. Bro's vision is cooked. He can't see the smaller one because actually does make sense. Okay, now let's see. I have score graphics. So in my score graphics section, I'm gonna go ahead and create maybe another method. Let's go ahead and create a void method called something like, I don't know, maybe display display scoreboard. Okay, display scoreboard on window board. There we go. Okay, with the prof parentheses, my display scoreboard's function requires SDL underscore renders a structure, which is going to be represented by renders as parameter. The second is going to be a floating point of scale parameters. I'm going to go with something like a floating point of scale. Then I go with the prof curly braces. Now inside my method, do I have a texture up here? I have two different textures. Let's go ahead and create another texture. Okay, this is going to be a texture for, let's say, something like my scoreboard. I might go with something like scoreboard texture. There we go, ending with a semicolon. Now I'm going to be setting, let's say, something like a value for my texture. So I'm going to go with something like my scoreboard's texture. Okay, scoreboard texture is going to be equal to my image underscore the load textures function. That does require, let's say, something like two parameters. Image underscore load texture. I might go with something like load texture. There we go. Which requires render and my file path. So the first parameter is going to be my texture. The second parameter is going to be my file path, which in this case, I forgot my file path, guys. Hold up. Let's go all the way here. So I have my scoreboard. I might go with something like scoreboard slash scoreboard4.png. Okay, so I might go with something like scoreboard. Was it like scoreboard slash, let's go with something like scoreboard4.png. Just to make sure, guys, let me see. So it's scoreboard. Okay, scoreboard. There we go. Guys, it comes in close that my stream is kind of delayed and all that stuff, so I can like see myself on my phone as well. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and get my textures as width and height. So I'm going to create a floating point of textures as width and textures as height, ending with a semicolon. Then I'm going to use the SDL underscore the get texture sizes function. I'm going to get my textures as size. My get texture size requires three parameters. The first parameter is going to be my texture, which is my scoreboard texture. The second parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures width. Third is going to be the memory address of my textures as height. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and set my rex's parameters. Let's say something like my rex's width equals to my textures width multiplied by my scale, ending with a semicolon. Rex's height equals to my textures height multiplied by my scale, ending with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done with that as well, I'm going to go ahead and let's say use the SDL underscore render textures as function. I want to render my texture. This function is going to be requiring a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render. The second parameter is going to be my scoreboard textures parameter, which is my texture. Third parameter is going to be null PDR because I don't have a source rect. The fourth parameter is going to be the memory address of my rect, ending with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore destroy textures as function, which requires a parameter of my texture, which in this case is going to be my scoreboard texture. Okay, so probably an illusion except for the last one. The fourth one seems bigger to me. That actually does make sense. Let's go with something like texture. Excuse me, guys, did I spell texture correct? Hold on, guys, I think I spelled it kind of wrong. Let's copy that, paste it here. There we go. Okay, and then I ended with a semicolon. Now let's go ahead and copy my function name here, go all the way down to my main loop and paste it under my graphics section. I'm gonna go with something like dice. Maybe that was not my dice's class, or am I just seeing things? It's core graphics class, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a object for my score graphics class. Let's go with something like score graphics, which is going to be having an object called something like score. Maybe I'll go with something like SC with a prof parentheses that does require a parameter of. I don't think it requires a constructor, does it? It does. What parameters does my constructor require? Let's check. So, score graphics, it does not require any parameters. Is it just me or does it require a constructor, guys? Hold on, let me think real hard. Okay, maybe I might just need x-axis, y-axis, width and height, but that's not for my constructor, right? Okay, let's just end it with a semicolon. Okay, score graphic cannot be referenced. It is a deleted function. It's a deleted function. Maybe I go with something like x-axis is going to be something like 100, y-axis is going to be 100, width is going to be something like 0, 0. And scale is going to be 0.1. Huh. Did I mess something up here? Let's end this with a semicolon. This wouldn't make sense, honestly, because if there's nothing inside of my constructor, then did I spell my score graphic correct? Let's scroll all the way up here. Let's copy that. Come all the way down here. Paste it. Remove this. This isn't a class up here. Where am I messing up? What am I doing here? The default constructor of scope graphics cannot be referenced. It's a deleted function. Maybe I don't inherit. Oh, I did. Okay, I knew this is gonna come, honestly. I do have to create a constructor. Let's go ahead and create a constructor. Okay, now my constructor is going to be consisting of, let's say, 2 parameters. So I'm going to go ahead and create something like a score graphics as constructor, which requires a SDL underscore renderer. So it requires a... I know it's going to require scale. It's going to require... I might not need renderer. I might just go with something like... Should I just go with scale? I might not need anything. Hello, how are you doing? Sancho Pinguala? Guala? Is that your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. That's it, guys. 15 more subscribers for the subscribers goal, guys. Really close. Make sure you guys push the subscribe button. That was a shameless plug. That's it. I'm gonna go with something like a colon and create a constructor for the class that I'm inheriting from, which in this case is going to be my physics bodies class. Speaking of which, did I need a constructor for this? I did need a renderer as constructor. Did I use it somewhere? Let's see. Renderer. I did draw my stuff. I did create my texture inside of my constructor. Okay. Okay, so I created my texture inside of my constructor. I might not need any parameters here in that case. Okay, my physics body does. My physics body's class requires, let's say something like x-axis, which is going to be something like 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, then I go with the pair of curly braces. X-axis, y-axis, width and height. And a scale. I might go with something like 0.1. Now, for my score graphics, maybe I just require a scales parameter in my constructor. That wouldn't make any sense. Well, maybe I don't require a scale in my physics bodies as class. There we go. Let's go ahead and remove that. Okay, now inside my constructor, I'm going to go with something like rect.x-axis equals to something like my x-axis parameter. What do I want to set my x-axis and y-axis to be? Maybe 100, ending with a semicolon. Rect.y-axis. If I do that, that's going to mess up half my stuff up here. Okay, maybe I don't add anything inside my constructor. My constructor is just empty. Now, let's scroll all the way down here. I go ahead and require no parameters. Let's end this with a semicolon. Now, if I were to hit... Actually, before I hit Control to save the code, I'm going to go with something like sc dot... was it sc? There we go. Score graphics. So, sg. Let's go with something like sg dot the display enemy score on window display scoreboard. Let's go with dot display scoreboard. With a pair of parentheses, my display scoreboard does require 2 parameters. First is going to be my render. Second is going to be my size, which I'm going to set it to be 0.1, 10% of its original size. Okay, I'm in desperate need for help. Can you tell me how to learn C++? I'm doing math and computing, branch and engineering, and I failed C++ class. Please guide me. Honestly, if you guys do want, like, whatchamacallit, my C++ roadmap that I use, that honestly does have almost everything that I could actually need to learn in C++, besides the SDL. If you want, like, SDL later on, I do have roadmap for that as well. That's it. If you guys do join my Discord server, I could, like, send the, or, like, DM you guys the roadmap, because I feel that has been, like, really helpful in my learning C++ journey up here. Okay, that's it. Let's see. I gotta probably go ahead and fix my render on my screen. So let's go all the way up here to my class. Okay, that is my physics bodies class. Do I really want to inherit from my physics bodies class though? I mean, if I wanted, I could, but I honestly don't want to. So let's see. Why does scoreboard inherit from physics bodies? Something is not right. Honestly, the reason I did inherit from my physics body is because I just wanted to, like, use these two parameters up here, but then I don't even think I might need it here, so I'm gonna probably just delete my physics bodies class from here. Let's go ahead and remove that, because I wanted to, like, use a function to, like, take the lazy way out, honestly, because I didn't want to, like, create my rect every single time type stuff. But probably I could actually create a rex's variable up here. Do I need rex somewhere down here? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and use a SDL underscore frex's structure. Let's use something like frex, which is going to be called something like rect, ending with a semicolon. Okay, my rect.width, rect.height here. Okay, and then I don't have my rex's x-axis and y-axis that I will set later on, but for my display scoreboard, I do need x-axis and y-axis. Rect.x-axis equals to 100, ending with a semicolon. Okay, rect.y-axis is going to be equal to something like 100 as well, ending with a semicolon. Let me change that to be something like 500 and 300. Now, if I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my console here, and I get my window here, but I do not see my rect anywhere. Okay, maybe, let's see. Do I gotta, I think because I destroy my texture here, let's copy my, or let's copy this from here, remove that from there. I'm gonna go ahead and destroy my texture after I'm done displaying it on my window. Display texture, or I might not display my texture, destroy my texture here. Let's hit Control S to save the code, run the command, get my console here, get my window here. But I don't see my scoreboard on my window. Could it be that my my file path is wrong? It's definitely my file path, guys. There is no way I'm actually messing something else up. So let's go to my scoreboard. Let's go ahead and copy my file path. Scoreboard. Okay, let's go ahead and paste that here. Okay, oh guys, there we go. See, I knew it was my file path. If I scroll all the way down here, you guys see the N there, the tiny little sneaky N up there? It was a tiny mistake when it comes, that I did when I was actually creating my file path or typing my file path out. Okay, let's go ahead and copy this, delete it from here. Let's go ahead and paste it here to destroy my renderer. Actually, destroy my texture. And now if I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my console here, I get my window here. There we go, guys. There's my tiny little scoreboard up there. My file path is wrong. No wonder I was like, I feel everything is correct. Where was I messing up? It was my file path all along, guys. Okay, speaking of which, I'm gonna change my size to something like 0.5, 50% of its original size. Okay, this is actually kind of good. I might go with something like 80% of its original size. Let's hit Control S to save the code and run the command again. Alright guys, I think 80% is like an overkill. Maybe I'll go with something like 70%, but I want to change its position to be a bit more towards the left side of my window. So I changed 500 to be something like 100. I changed 300 to be something like 100. If I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Maybe I do go with 0. This is too big. Let's go with something like 0. Hit Control S. Okay, I think I gotta go with something like negative. Let's go with something like negative, maybe 0, negative 50. Okay, let's go with something like -50. Scroll all the way down here. Change my size from 0.7 to be 0.6. If I were to hit Control S to save the code and run the command, I mean, I won't say this is bad. My entire enemy almost comes here. I might go with something like -100. That would probably fix this whole thing up. If I hit Control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens. There we go. Okay, now I'm a bit more towards the left. Instead of 100, let's hit a sweet spot of something like 80. Guys, I know this is like, it's kind of a bad idea to like hard code these numbers, but I feel it does look kind of good if I do it. There we go. That looks really good now, guys. And I want my dice to be rolling right here. I do want, like, for now, it is like, whoops. For now, my dice was like above my, let me actually run the code and show you guys. I get my console here. I get my window here. My dice is currently above my scoreboard, but I want it to be rolling right here when my user hits like a button like under my score that says something like push type stuff. Your odds seems good and simple. I can draw for my own games. Honestly, I feel like it's like really easy to draw this stuff. All I did was just draw a square block here and added dots and all that stuff. For my scoreboard, it was literally simple. It's just like I added 21 dots here. Like I used like a pixeler app. The app is called something like Pixeler, where you can actually draw pixel stuff. So I drew like 21 lines here, and then 21 lines up there, 21 lines up there, 21 lines here, and then 31 lines here. And then I just did the same exact thing up here. And I went to Google and I typed how do you type Y, and then how do you type O, how do you type U type stuff. If that makes any sense. That said, I feel like I'm at my limit right now, guys. Maybe I want to continue the rest of this code tomorrow. I could go with something like Control-A, Control-C, copy that. Let's get some /ChatGPT here. Let's paste it, go with Shift-Enter and say something like, let's say, it works, exclamation. Although I feel like I'm a bit exhausted right now, so maybe I'll continue this program tomorrow. That said, before I do end the stream, is there anything that you want to say to the viewers, question mark? That's gonna be, we're like really close to our subscriber goal. Maybe next stream we need like 15 more. That's it. Sensei says stop. Look at what you did. You did not copy. Maybe, I mean, I did get like some help from chat/sensei. You did not panic. You understood state accumulation and spatial progression, the same thinking used in real game engines. You fixed it by doing this one crucial thing. Stop setting position and start advancing it. This is a mental upgrade, not a code tweak. To the viewers, here's this clearly. Progress is not coding for 12 hours. Progress is having your brain get tired for the right reason. Exhaustion after real thinking is a good sign. It means neutral wires were bent, not just keys pressed. As Miyamoto Musashi said, perception is strong and sight is weak. Today you train perception, tomorrow you come back, you roll the dice for will, you update the score, you stop recreating textures every frame, and you turn it into a proper system. Rest now, you've earned it. Head back from Sensei, controlled one. Stream, remember this moment. End the stream with proud, you move forward today. That said, let's go to my main camera. Alright guys, so basically that was pretty much it for the stream. That said, I didn't want to stream for longer, but I feel my brain is at its limit right now. Although next stream, I might actually create some more PNGs to make the game look a bit more fun type stuff. That said, if you guys didn't enjoy the stream, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, like, helps my algorithm, share, make you smile, and subscribing is like a cherry on top. And guys, I did start multi-streaming on Twitch, Kick, YouTube. I will start multi-streaming on Instagram and TikTok as well. So if you guys do enjoy my content and haven't followed me there, make sure you guys follow me there. The link is going to be in the description. And if you guys do need my C++ roadmap and all that stuff, or talk to me in general, make sure to join my Discord server. The link is going to be in the description as well. That's it. I'll catch you guys in the next live stream or video. Peace. And guys, we're like really close to 100 members in Discord. That's kind of cool as well.